When the housing market collapsed in 2008, trillions of dollars in paper wealth vanished overnight. More recently, we saw that same pattern repeat across the digital landscape, as speculative prices for cryptocurrencies and NFTs fell back to earth. During these crashes, the utility of a physical home or the logic of a digital token is sidelined. Investors focus instead on a single expectation, that someone else will pay a higher price tomorrow. This behavior is an incredibly old habit. The first recorded instance of this type of market collapse occurred in the 1630s, triggered entirely by a flower. During the 1600s, the Dutch Republic was the wealthiest nation on earth. Their massive global trading empire dominated the maritime routes for spices, timber, and silk. This mercantile success created a large, flourishing middle class. These citizens had surplus cash on hand and a growing desire for new ways to publicly display their social standing. Enter the tulip. Native to the mountains of Central Asia, the flower traveled through the Ottoman Empire before arriving in European gardens in the 1570s. To a European eye, the tulip was alien. Its intense, highly saturated colors were completely absent from native flora, marking it as a rare luxury. In a society flush with disposable income, planting an exotic flower in your garden served as a powerful status symbol. This fueled a level of consumer demand that the supply of physical bulbs couldn't keep up with. The obsession intensified when a plant virus began infecting certain bulbs. It caused striking, unpredictable stripes on the petals, making broken tulips the most coveted items in the country. However, tulips have a severe biological bottleneck. They bloom for a single week in the spring and can only be safely pulled from the ground and transported during the late summer. This timeline illustrates how the Dutch bypassed that biological bottleneck by inventing forward contracts. Buyers could purchase a specific bulb at the end of the season. Speculators gathered in taverns to trade contracts, paying just a 2.5% fee, known as wine money. The Dutch called this windhandel, or wind trade. Buyers were dealing in the abstract idea of a flower, while the actual bulb was still growing in the dirt. Detaching the physical plant from the contract transformed the tulip into a leveraged financial instrument. Ownership became an easily tradable asset that could change hands many times before a single petal ever bloomed. In the 1630s, an outbreak of the bubonic plague swept through the region. The resulting labor shortage drove wages up, injecting even more surplus cash into the pockets of the middle class. This chart compares a skilled craftsman's yearly salary to the cost of a single rare bulb. At the market's peak, one Semper Augustus tulip bulb cost 10 times the annual income of that craftsman, roughly the price of a grand estate. By the winter of 1636, market velocity peaked. Contracts were flipped up to 10 times in a single day by speculators who had never even seen the flowers they were trading. The breaking point arrived in February 1637 at a routine bulb auction in the city of Haarlem. For the first time, buyers simply refused to show up. Bids were met with silence. The chain of speculation snapped instantly. Since the entire market relied on the existence of a future buyer, the sudden absence of those buyers caused the speculative value of the contracts to drop to zero. Paper fortunes evaporated in days. Popular history often claims that the bursting of the tulip bubble destroyed the entire Dutch economy. The actual historical records show a more nuanced reality. The financial ruin was contained to a few hundred active speculators. The broader Dutch economy remained robust, heavily anchored by its shipping and trade dominance. The aftermath was mostly a legal mess. The government tried to intervene, but the forward contracts were largely unenforceable. Debts were eventually settled outside the courts, with massive write-downs and canceled contracts. The crash didn't even kill the Dutch love for the flower. The Netherlands resumed growing them and remains the global leader in commercial flower production today. The Dutch Republic demonstrated that a nation could survive the collapse of a luxury fad. The risk resided in the collective psychology that allowed a common flower to become untethered from its actual utility. Economists point to two distinct psychological drivers behind this event. First is herding, the fear of missing out on easy profits. Second is overconfidence, the blind belief that prices will perpetually rise. These behaviors blur the line between two types of value. Intrinsic value is what an item is worth based on its utility. speculative value is the hope that another person will pay more for it later. A direct line connects the traders of 17th century Holland to modern investors gambling on dot-coms, housing derivatives, and digital apes. History shows that when prices depend entirely on finding a greater fool to buy the next contract, the market eventually runs out of participants. The assets change, but the patterns of human behavior persist across centuries.